Hello and welcome. If you're new here, my name is Kat, and if you've been here before, it's lovely to see you again. This year I'm hoping to get to know my flora just a little bit better in a meaningful way. As a person, I tend to find that knowledge stays with me better if I use a practical method of learning. Now, of course, I love to go outdoors. If you've been here a while, you'll have seen it's one of my favourite things to do. I could just go out and learn to identify plants, which would be beneficial and is something that I would like to do, but I think it adds a bit of more of a layer and for me, a more meaningful way of remembering and connecting to see what these plants I can use to dye with and what amazing colours I can get. I thought that pairing both, getting to connect deeper to nature and textile crafts in one, was kind of a perfect pairing. Maybe this inspires you to discover what local dyes you have access to near you and what you can forage safely. Hopefully I can inspire you to see what colours you might create. Enjoy the learning process, because I'm sure I'm going to learn. That means it's not all going to be perfect first time. And to get to know what surrounds you also. If you have been a long time dyer, feel free to offer up some advice and tips for anyone else who would like to join in. After I decided to embark on this project, I listened to the book Grounded by Ruth Allen, and actually since I've re-listened to it, I've listened to it twice in 2 months. She brought to my attention the word topophilia. It is a word that's used to describe the emotional connection people have to an environment or a place. I've often had an inner battle with my hometown. I really love the park and the nature that I can find, and we've got great access to getting out of the suburban London area to go and see more nature, but I never really felt like there was enough space to breathe unless I was in the park. However, over the last few years, I've really worked on myself to change that by being more present and active in searching and noticing these little natural enchantments that we have around us, whether that's watching the magpie yesterday, which I'm not going to tell you because it was a little bit sad, but the magpie finding its food, or the wrens at the end of the street that thrive in this single bush that appears in the middle of nowhere. Just really trying to be active and noticing a couple of trees that might be on just a path, but they're covered in moss and lichen. And I think that's starting to deepen and bring me that sense of comfort I find in this environment. I feel much more at peace and settled than I did the last few years. This video is very kindly sponsored by Skillshare. For the month of February, I opted to use birch to dye. The pigment that you use to dye from birch can come from the leaves, but in this case we chose the bark. I was hoping to find a local log that had fallen. I know that there was many in our woodland. It's really changed dramatically over the last decade, our local woodland, mostly because of the ash dieback, but I know that because of the storms that we've had, there's a lot of fallen birch. Birch trees are common across the UK, especially in woodlands and heathlands. The silver birch, Betula pendula, is that how you say it? It's a beautiful, poetic sentence. The silver birch is the most widespread species, known for its beautiful white bark that peels away in thin papery layers. These trees are adaptable, thriving in a variety of soils, and are often one of the first species to colonise in a cleared or disturbed land. Not only are they beautiful, they provide, like many trees, habitat and food for a variety of wildlife, including insects, birds and small mammals. I have to say, I've always found them to be beautiful and always enjoyed seeing them in our local woodland. some considerations when gathering for this kind of thing, you know, a project that feels somewhat not selfish, because I think these kinds of things spread, whether that's through here online sharing with you and you feeling more of a connection to your home and maybe taking care of it more or being aware and then spreading it on, or, you know, going out. Every time I've gone to the woods lately, I've had nice conversations with people that I just normally wouldn't experience, and in turn learning more about what's local and hopefully inspiring them to, you know, maybe try and do the same. When gathering birch bark, it is important to gather from fallen bark. Don't collect from the trees, that's mean. Birch bark is known for giving pinks, light russet reds or yellow hues. Take only what you need. The general rule, which is always there to be broken for natural dyeing, is 1 gram for 1 gram. So 1 gram of plant matter or dye stuff to 1 gram of fibre. Take only what you need and leave enough for the wildlife and plant regeneration. Know your local regulations, so some plants might be protected or require permission to harvest. This is fine. Birch is okay to take from my local woodland. And use seasonal mindfulness, so careful and mindful about when you're taking things. Make sure it's at an appropriate time of year. Focus on what is plentiful to minimise your impact. Again, feeling a deeper connection to our environment and what's going on around us. In the preparation, you can see that the outer of the bark is more pale and the inner undersurface is a red colour. I'm guessing this is where the pigment lays, and I thought if it's brittle, we could probably break this by hand if it wasn't too thick, or chop it with an axe if necessary. This would give us smaller pieces, which in theory gives you a better access to the dye pigment and to really get the best out of this beautiful little resource that we have. However, since this has already been damp for a while, it's been really damp in the UK for the last few weeks, I decided not to chop it up and to forego the suggestion and recommendation of soaking the bark for a week. This might have been an error, but we are here to learn, and intuitively, or you know, in my little heart, it felt right to go straight into dyeing or mordanting. I decided not to mordant with any iron, which would have given a darker colour and led to more dark grey or grey based tones. I wanted to see what I would get out of this birch on its own. I did opt to use alum as my mordant, so I soaked the fibre a little bit for a couple of hours, and then I soaked it in an alum mix with a bit of cream of tartar overnight, and then the next day I popped it in a vat to dye. Now, how much mordant you use is again up to you. There is lots of different methods out there, and I'll go into a bit more detail on this when I've got a grasp of my preferences. I know there's methods of using soya milk to do so. I don't really like using soya in the UK. Alum is, you know, has its benefits, its pros and its cons as well, but for now I'm using what I have to hand, and I'm going to experiment before going into a little bit more detail on this. I hope that's okay with you. I'm not an expert, and I'm really just, you know, trying to find a good way of learning that makes me feel excited, rather than just sharing information that I found in a book that doesn't feel like I've connected to it yet. Does that make sense? I hope so. I ended up choosing mohair. I love mohair, and I had 500 grams roughly of birch bark, and I knew I had 5 skeins of mohair that would love to have a little bath, and it just felt right. So I did actually have quite a high ratio, but I was already a little bit aware that because that bark had been sat for so long, that it might not have as much pigment as, you know, a fresher fallen bit of bark might. In the end, I dyed 5 skeins, which is 250 grams of fibre to 500 grams of dye matter. I prepared the fibre by mordanting it and soaking it and keeping it wet before I dyed it. I also heated up the bark separately. I made a hot extracted bath from it. I think I did a couple of hours and left it to cool overnight, and then the next day I heated up the dye bath with the fibre in it, left it for a couple of hours, and again left it to cool overnight. While the magic in the dye pot happens, let's quickly chat about Skillshare. I have wanted a way of organising my projects so that I can track things like what I've recorded, handwritten notes, and what time of year for this project in particular, what plant matter I should be gathering at what time of year. And with the help of Skillshare and some practice, I think I'm finally getting there. It will take a while more, I'm sure, but I think I'm starting to find a way of not just having lots of handwritten notes and then notes on my phone in 10 different places to try and remember project by project. If you don't know, Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, with thousands of classes across so many categories, from craft and design like knitting or illustration or watercolour, all the way to productivity and organisation. The classes are taught by professionals who are excited to share their knowledge with you. Classes and learning paths are really easy to dip in and out of, and one of my favourite things about them is that they all come with a project to do, making it practical learning, which, as you might realise, is something that I find really beneficial. You get the audio, the visual, and then the practical project to go alongside it. The first 500 people to click the link in my description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. If you do, let me know what classes you take, and thank you again for sponsoring this Skillshare. I am drinking a peppermint today. I just feel like I need a little bit of calming energy. Don't know about you. The next day I gave it a rinse and a good clean, and then left it to dry in the most beautiful sunlight. It was really, really a lovely day. And here they are. So as kind of expected, the bark had been laying down in the ground for, I say months, it's years. One of the barks in particular, I've been spying that log, I've sat on that log numerous times, so of course the pigment wasn't going to be very strong. But I have to say it feels quite poetic or serendipitous, because this colour seems to have captured, you tell me, but it seems to have captured the light of the day that I gathered the bark and the light that was happening while I was drying the finished fibre. I don't know, I'm not usually that, I'm a whimsical person and I'm sensitive and I find connections, but this just feels particularly special. I'm super happy. Initially I was like, maybe I should over dye it, but I think this is just how it should be. I am a little bit torn on what to do with this fibre at the moment. I'm tempted to either knit myself a single top, like a little top, I do love a mohair top, or use it as the weft in a scarf or shawl. And then the rest will either, I don't know, maybe be passed on, maybe someone else would like to take some of these off my hands. Either way, I'm absolutely thrilled, and I'm so glad that this project kind of found its way into my little life. Yeah. I'm so excited to continue this project and to see where this knowledge and where it actually leads me and my feet. I know that Alex is also excited by this project and would like to join in too. If you have any plants that you would suggest or are excited to see that are maybe less commonly known about, please let me know. I'm happy to give them a go and see if I can find them. Thank you so much for coming along, both outside and into my home. I really appreciate you being here with me. I hope that I get to see you very soon, and don't forget to love each other.